Hey there, it's Mark from Men Who Bullet. Thanks for hanging out with me today as we set up bullet journal number 8. I cannot believe that I am moving into my 8th bullet journal. It's kind of insane. I'm encroaching on 5 years of bullet journaling. I'm really excited for that to happen in April. And it just happened to be that bullet journal number 7 got about like 5 pages left, and I thought this would be the prime time to go ahead and kick off the new year inside of a new bullet journal. I've upgraded my size. I'm moving from the A5 size that I've been working in for the most part of this year, well, almost this entire year, and I'm going to a B5 size. A lot of reasons for this. I would say my two main ones are that my new job requires a lot of notes. I'm just finding that I'm just killing through like 5, 6, 7 pages a week. And it's just because I have a lot of notes and things that I'm writing down and working through. So I thought that this bigger size notebook would help me kind of contain that to maybe a page or 2 a week instead of 6 or 7 pages a week. And the other reason is it's been quite a long time since I even used something this big. The last time that I was in anything close was back in bullet journal number 3, which I just did that flip through of. And that was so long ago. I feel like I've really matured in how I approach my bullet journal now. So excited to take this on with a more mature way of planning. Oh my gosh. Now, as we get started, I just want to let you know, this isn't to be dramatic. This is just to be real, because that's how I like to be with you. This video almost didn't happen because I almost didn't record it. And the reason is that today's setup is going to be relatively basic. I'm going to add a little bit of fun elements inside of there, but nothing too crazy. And the reason that I didn't almost record this video was because that comparison monster was creeping up on me this year. I spent a lot of October and some of November looking into other people's bullet journal 2022 setups, and they are just amazing. And I'm looking at what I'm doing today, which is setting up the basics, really. And I was like, this just isn't going to be interesting to anyone. Like, don't even record this, Mark. Just set it up for yourself, get going, take your photos for Instagram and be done. But then I stopped myself and I said, you know what, Mark, we cannot compare ourselves to others, right? Everyone has their own way of doing things, and so do I. Almost 5 years of doing this, I understand who I am. I feel confident in who I am, and I accept the way that I bullet journal. And I have such great feedback, both on Instagram and here on YouTube, about loving my style and really finding that you connect with it because it is more basic. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this for myself, but I'm also going to do it for you as well, so you can just see what a more basic setup of a bullet journal can look like. Just felt like I wanted to share that with you in case you're feeling that comparison monster creeping up on you and you're not sure if you want to create or share or do something. Just try to swipe that away and just say, you know what? Why am I doing this? Why am I focusing on my bullet journal? What do I need from it? And then we get up and running from there. I am going to do the basics of the bullet journal collection pages. We are going to set up an index. We are going to set up a future log. That's going to be kind of our 2 first things that we're going to do. Then after that, I'm going to set up a few collection pages that I need to get started. I have 2 recurring meetings that are going to happen throughout this year. They've happened for the last few months of this new job. Those are going to continue. I'm hoping to change things up a little bit at work for my team and consolidate some meetings. So I wanted to hold off on making too many recurring meeting pages just yet. Now, I also wanted to set up tracker pages. I'm a big believer in Instagram tracker pages, and I love setting them up. So we'll be doing that as a part of this video. And then I'm also going to set up a YouTube tracker. That's going to really be it. I just find that for myself, I just like a more organic bullet journal. I can't plan for the entire year and have all of these pages and months ready to go. I'm strictly just going to focus on getting these pages set up today. And then as we go through future videos and setups throughout this year, we'll work on them together and I'll record them one at a time as I've been doing. So we'll keep having fun with that. So let's go ahead and get into it and set up our 2022 Archer and Olive B5 bigger size bullet journal. I'm going to have to get used to this new height here. All right, so this is a little bit of a different setup than I've been doing in my previous videos because, well, when I have that A5, I can get a little bit closer, but this B5 definitely needs its space. So we're saying farewell to an A5 size dot grid notebook from Archer and Olive, and we are saying hello to a B5 size Archer and Olive notebook. I'm sticking with Archer and Olive for 2 main reasons. The first is I have a ton of these notebooks already at home. from my time on the design team and working along with them throughout the years. And the other reason is I really appreciate the brand and also the quality of these notebooks. 160 GSM paper means that most pens, paint, stamps, all of those things can go onto these pages without any worry of it ghosting or bleeding through the page. And I can be as creative as I want, but I'm just a big fan of these notebooks as a whole. So we're going to go with this one. This is from the fall collection. Just a beautiful, really cool gold foil raven here on the front with this really beautiful dark blue cloth cover here. We're going to open this bad boy up, and then we are going to start breaking down all of our pages and going into setting up our index, our future log. The first thing that I'm going to do, which I didn't mention already, is I need to set up my grid spacing cheat sheet. I've been setting these up ever since I started inside of my square bullet journal as a really quick and easy way to lay out my pages when I'm doing any type of a weekly spread or collection page setup. I break this into two separate pages just because the other grid spacing cheat sheets I've seen out there that stick on one page, there's just so many numbers and lines and everything going through. It's just a lot to try to look at and break down, and I want to make things easier for myself, not harder for myself. So I set it up into two pages. Over here on the left hand side, I set up all of my columns, so my vertical spacing that I'm going to have, and breaking that down. This notebook itself has 32 squares left to right and 46 squares top to bottom. I use squares instead of dots just because that's the actual space that I'm going to be taking up in my notebook, not necessarily the dots. So to break down this page into two full columns, I'm taking that 32, just breaking that in half to 16. Give myself a little bit more space for this 2-column grid. From there, I break it down just a little bit more into 3 columns if I want to. This is really helpful if I'm setting up 6 days or Monday through Friday plus a weekend. Having these 3 columns is just really great and easy way of setting things up. I also break this down into 4 columns in a few different ways, and the final one I'll do is going to be 5 columns. This is probably the smallest that I'm ever going to go inside of this notebook. Breaking that down into 6 or anything more is just way too small for me. I'd rather set up a 2-page spread using the 3 columns here instead of trying to fit all onto one page. Over on the right hand side, this is where I'm setting up all of my rows. So if I'm working horizontally across my page, this is what I'm going to do. Because we have 46 squares top to bottom, I can break that right in half into 23, and that'll break my page perfectly into a half. I give myself a little bit of extra space, the same way that I've done over here on the other side. We also have 3 rows, 4 rows, 5, and all the way down into 6. And I went down to 6 for this one just because we have a lot more vertical space inside of this notebook than we do with our horizontal space. So if I wanted to set up a Monday through Friday with the weekend space here, I would feel totally confident doing that on a 1-page spread and saving the rest for something else. As you can see, I already have pencil inside of here. I'm going to continue to use pencil throughout. While I've set up most of my pages already, I am a strong believer in pencils first. For my darker lines, I'm going to be using these Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens. It's a really great set to use. It comes with a few different sizes, everything from their extra small, we've got small, we also have a fine point at 0.5 and a medium at 0.7. So it really gives me everything I need to set this up nice and easy with a few different thicknesses or thinness for those lines. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention in the beginning of the video, but I am going to be using, is watercolor inside of this notebook. I'm not going to use it a lot, but for some really nice fun accent colors, I'm going to be using the Nichols Pureless Transparent Watercolor. These are really awesome flat sheets of watercolor, so they're super mobile and they don't take up a lot of space. I keep them inside of this box just for organization for right now, but we're going to be using this on some of the other pages to add a little pop of color. I'll also just be using a water brush here just to be able to pick up some color quickly and add it to the page, but we'll get into that in just a little bit. Let's take out our rulers and let's go ahead and set up our cheat sheet. So with this space filled out here, I'll just show you how I've broken these down and why I did these certain spaces. So the first one, as I mentioned, is to cut this page straight in half. We're going to need 16 squares on the left and the right. And that's going to be with no spaces in between. So if I'm going all the way from the furthermost dot on my left to the furthest most dot on the right-hand side of my page, that'll go ahead and split this page right in half. I sometimes like to give myself a little bit of space between my columns here. So to do that, I'm just going to subtract 1 from each side to make it nice and even. That will give me 15 on this side and 15 over on this side. And I just call this easy math. It's splitting that right in half. It's taking 2 away from each side, so it's 15 on each side, but still adds up to 32. It's just really nice and easy ways to break that down into commonly used breakdowns that I do. You'll see here for the 3, I've done that in 2 different ways. One, here at the top, I've left 1 space in between, and then down here, I just removed those and added them to the end. I did forget to mention that I also do right inside of the open spaces as well, just to let myself know how much space I have or how many squares I need to skip. For 4 columns, we just divide 32 by 4, which equals 8. To give ourselves a little bit more space if I want to break those down into individual columns versus connected, then I'm going to add a little bit of space in between here to do that. This does throw the page off that perfect center, but in this case, to add those spaces in between each one of these columns, it has to be done. So I can either add that over here to the right-hand side, or I could bump these over and add it over here to the left. It doesn't really matter. What's most important is I know it takes 7 squares with 1 in between to add individual columns down the page. If I do want to create a little bit of symmetry, then what I can do is just remove a square from here. So instead of 7, I'll make each one of these 6. And then we'll have 1 space on the outside with 2 in between. The last one we've done is for those 5 connected columns going down the page. We're going to leave 1 space open here on either end. And then all we're doing is multiplying 6 and 5. So that's going to take us to 30, 31, 32. Let's go ahead and put this down because we'll be doing the same thing on the other side here. The last thing that I want to do is just come back and just go ahead and marker in each one of the breakdowns so I can erase the pencil later. This is one of those pages that I don't mind spending extra time on because I know that I'm going to use this every single week that I'm inside of my bullet journal. So for me, it's worth it to set these up. Let's go ahead and marker in all of the rows that we're going to be creating here, starting with 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way to 6. All right, we're totally done with this side now. So the way that we're setting this up here is we're going to go ahead and split this 46 in half, and that'll give us 23 top and bottom. Give ourselves a little bit more space here with the 2 square gap. That'll be 22 and 22. For our 3 breakdown, we've got 15s here, or we can break them down into 14s with 2 in between. Here, we're just working off of, again, that basic math, 10, 20, 30, 40. 2, 4, 6 equals 46, or scrunch them all together, give ourselves a little bit more room with 2 at the top, which again can be moved top or bottom depending on what you need. For 5s, we're counting up 9s with the 1 extra on top. We want to give ourselves a little bit more space in between there. That'll be 7 with 2 squares in between with 3 at the top. Or again, you can shift those around if you want to. And then if we want to go 6, that'll be 7 squares all the way up with 4 squares at the top. This would work really well for a Monday through Friday with a weekend and then a header on the top if you wanted to use 1 full page for that. I'll be cleaning up all of this later, but after you use your pen, you do want to go in with an eraser and just get rid of any of those extra lines, and then you'll be good to go. All right, so this is our index page. So let's talk theme for a second. I don't usually theme all of my notebooks, but I do have a general get started. So as a good example of this, when I started inside of the Galaxy drip, I went and tried to kind of replicate some of the drips that were happening here. So our index looked like this, and then my future log looked like this. Now, this is just a Raven with a cool blue cover, so I had to come up with my own general theme to get started. I am not going to keep this throughout my entire journal, but I thought for some of these starter pages, I most certainly could because I'm taking the time to create those. To create my pages, I used 2 things. Well, 3 things, I guess, technically. I used a ruler, I used a stencil, And I'm going to use watercolor. I didn't use that just yet. Stencils are a really great and easy way to get really cool and nice looking text without handwriting. I know that I'm personally not awesome at doing really cool block lettering like this, so a stencil is a great and easy way to go. So all I did was take my pencil, went over top of these to give myself an outline, and then what I'll do next is actually two things. First, I will actually use watercolor inside of here to fill in my square. That's going to be my theme, and then I'll go over all of these here with one of my markers, and then that way everything will be good to go. It'll be a nice black header here, and then just a straight line down to split out our index. So let me go ahead and do this real quick, and then we'll come back and talk about why I'm splitting the page out like this. For most of this, I'm going to just be using a few different colors. I'm going to be keeping inside of the blue family just because the notebook is blue, and blue is an easy color for me to use. It's my favorite color, so I want to be happy as I'm using this. On the back of all of these have all of the colors that we're going to be using. So I've got my Forget-Me-Not blue over here. We've got this really cool Alice blue. And a lot of these colors aren't going to look exactly as they look on here because it's so concentrated. It's got this really dark look, but we've got cobalt blue. We've got a nice turquoise blue. I like blue. My daughter likes turquoise, so we'll play with some of those inside of here. And then inside of this collection too, we have a sky blue. And then we also have a deep blue, which is so interesting because this does not look blue at all, but it most certainly will be when we start using it. So we'll have all of these to go with. I'm just going to start with the Forget-Me-Not blue. I've already used this before because I like it. So what's cool about these watercolors from Peerless is that, as I've mentioned before, they're all on this flat sheet. You just take a wet brush to them and it picks up the color. And then you can paint right onto your page. There's no pots, there's no anything else like that. You're just grabbing the color right off of this paper and adding it right onto your page. If you're interested in picking up any of the Peerless watercolors while we're working with them today, you can use my discount code, which is menwhobullet20, and that will get you 20% off your first order. I'll put all the details in the descriptions below and then also down here for you too. While we give that just a second to dry, the reason I'm doing this on my pages, again, is I wanted to make it somewhat interesting without going overboard. I like design. I like color. I just don't use them a ton when I'm designing out my weekly pages. But this is a nice and subtle way to add some color, add some lettering without overdoing it. I'm also going to split my index page in half. Usually I don't recommend that. There's really never been a reason to, but on an A5 size, does it make sense to split it in half? Because a lot of the times you're going to use all of the space. But inside of this bigger notebook here, I just have a feeling that I can fit everything I need to on one of these sides. And that way I'm only going to need 2 pages for an index versus 4 or 6 as I have used in the past. Because we have a lot of space to fill in, I'm going to be using the Faber-Castell, the Pitt Artist Fine Liner in that medium size. It's a good size tip there. I'm not worried about working exactly right inside. If you are really trying to get on point, you can use your stencil and then trace right inside of it. But for me, I'm actually just going to trace over top of the pencil marks that I already have here. When it comes to any of these connector lines, and this is both for this page and any of my future ones, I don't want it to look like a stencil. So I'm just going to connect those two as I'm drawing the lines here to make it into a solid letter. Now we had a little bit of a happy accident here happen at the top. While Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens are water resistant and they are light and fast and usually dry very quickly, I decided that, well, with time restraints, that I was going to put down my watercolor first, let it dry, and then use the marker over top of it. Problem is that water wasn't totally dry, went in with the marker, and it kind of spread out the ink. Not mad at it. It's fine. Watercolor is fun like that, which is something for me to pay attention to as I move forward, especially using this in the future. I think I might do it opposite next time. I'll go ahead in with this color first, and then I'll do the watercolor over top of it after it dries. We'll see how that goes. So the index is complete here. Just split that in half, index to the top with my watercolor square there. So that's all done. Go ahead and just draw a straight line down here. I'm not going to redo my headline again here. I know it's my index page. It's already there. Just want to go ahead and split this page. All right, so future log. This is it's going to be time consuming, but luckily for you, I'm going to speed it up nice and quickly so you'll just see it when it's done. Usually I only do 6 months inside of my future log because usually my notebooks only last about that long. But because this is larger and I think I'm going to be using more single pages versus all of them, I decided to go ahead and do a full year inside of here. If I make it to December, I think that's great. I don't know that I might, and I'm totally okay with that, but I can go ahead and plan for a full year in here if I want to, and I most certainly can. I've also gone in and added in some of the dates, so whenever I'm filling these out, I will actually fill in the full calendar dates for each of those months, but when I'm going through and just making sure that I have the right number, I'll usually fill in the first of the month, and then I'll follow up with that Saturday, and then I'll finish out that bottom week. It just looks kind of weird, but for me, I know that the first in March is going to start on a Tuesday, so it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm counting correctly, 6, 7, 12, and then just keep following down, and then I'll know that'll be 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, which will be the end of March. It's just a nice, easy way for me to mark down some dates without having to write them all in pencil and then write them all again in pen, because that doesn't make any sense to me. So I've just done it this way over time, and it's worked out well for me. So let's follow my own, what I learned from those previous pages. I'll fill in all of the dates first with the Pit Artist pen. Then I'll come back in later to add in my little pops of color through here, but I'll also go in with my more fine line. This is where the Uniball 1 is going to come in handy with that fine tip to add in all of the days of the months. All right, and with a little bit of that movie magic, we are all set up and ready to go. That would have been a really long time to watch me write out everything here, but we are good on both the full year here, January through December. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is go through and just add the watercolor onto the pages. Everything should be dry and good to go. Hopefully we don't have any more leakage into the squares with the watercolor, because this has been able to sit on here for a little bit. We started with the Forget Me Not blue over on this page here, so I'm going to go just kind of down the row over on the side here and go through each of these colors. So this one is going to be Alice Blue, which is a really nice dark blue. Love that one. This will be Cobalt Blue. This will be the Turquoise Blue. And then inside of our book here, we have our Sky Blue. And then we've got this really cool deep blue, which is on here, which is so dark. Ooh, that might legit be my favorite color. Look how dark that is. That is awesome. And then we'll just finish it up over here. We're going to give this just a second to dry before we flip the page, and then we'll go back through those, and then we'll have all of the days of the week ready to go for our future log. All right. So a few things that happened on this that I noticed that while I was filling everything out is because of where my lines were, because I had both the marker as well as the graphite that were on here, when I was pressing really hard, they came over on my pager. So I'm hoping that that will erase away when I eventually make it over to these pages. But we're going to do a few things on here. We are going to use just a rounded edge of a ruler or something to create our rounded edges. We'll go ahead and color in the blue square that's up here as well. And then I'm actually going to use some stencils for these here for me to set up my goals and objectives for 2022. I'm going to be using another stencil that I have here. This came from a kit that I got off of Amazon. I'll go ahead and link that in the descriptions below for you as well if you're interested in getting this guy for yourself. But there's just some small ones on here. I want to use this just to make sure that I'm getting the right shape. It's nice and easy. To set this up, I'm just dropping down one square here, and then I'm going to give myself 2 spaces in between. That way, as I'm writing out my goal, which sometimes is longer than just one sentence, I'll have plenty of space for it. I'm going to give myself extra space down here for extra notes if I need them, but also I can utilize this space if I have more to write. Maybe I want to do goals here and objectives down below. I don't quite know what this year is going to look like just yet in 2022 for myself, so give myself a little bit of room here just in case. I'm going to use the round edges of this little template that I have here. It's a little bit different than the one that I was originally going to go with, but I want to have a nice, cool round edge. Just going to grab a light gray brush pen that I have here. I'm just going to add a slight little drop shadow underneath. All right, looking pretty good. Oh, I just realized that I missed the bottom part of my lines here. All right, lines are all cleaned up and we're looking good. So our future log here, January through June, July through December, we're good. Then we have our 2022 goals and objectives, which I'll be filling out in the beginning of the year with my team. This will keep me focused on work. If I want, I could put some other personal goals down here. We're just going to leave some open space. I've already filled in just the black lines here just so that we can move along quickly. I was realizing that it would take us forever if you were to watch me just letter in each of those. I think more importantly, it's cool to see what's happening with the watercolor when we're using it on here and doing that. So these are 2 reoccurring meetings that I'm going to have that I know for sure will continue throughout this year. I've got our weekly team meeting over on this side, which I'll just be taking notes and anything else. This will just get me started. I will continue through these pages as I go through, and we'll be noting these inside of the index when we start to label out all of the numbers of our pages. I'm not going to do that in this video. That's very tedious, but the way that I will like to set this up essentially, well, I'll have my index. I'll start here with page number 1, and then we'll continue through as we make it through, and I'll start writing these down. And some of these pages, like weekly or lunch and learns, there'll be an entire year's worth of content that'll be going on inside of here, and I'll just be able to continue those through and write down those new page numbers inside of my index. I'm going to lay an extra piece of paper here just in case it's not fully dry, but I want to move along a little bit. So here we have our Instagram tracker and our YouTube tracker. So Instagram tracker, I'm going to come back to in just a second because I'm actually going to use one of my stamps that I made for the Instagram tracker for here. Let's start on the YouTube tracker. So previously, as I mentioned, I was using my YouTube tracker as I was working towards monetization. I needed to get the, my gosh, what was it? 4,000 public view hours, I think it was at the time, to make that happen. Now I'm past that. I'm monetized. I've hit that goal. But my next big goal is to get up to 10,000 subscribers. It's not a major goal for me. It's not like that's my next big, like, make it happen. I'm excited for it, but I don't think I'm ever going to be like some amazing YouTuber or something like that it's gonna work out for. So we'll go ahead and set it up. So the way that I'm doing this is I have a little over 6,000 subscribers now, which is fantastic. What I've done is I'll just skip a few of these spaces here. So this will be for 6,000, and then I'll have 6,250, 6,500, 6,750, and then getting up to 7,000. So just doing it by those increments. It's going to take me a while to get to that point, but it's totally okay. I'm going to actually track this throughout the year. So we'll start over here with January, and then I've made 12 notches along here, and that will be for each month of the year. So we'll start right over here. I have just a small notch. I'm just going to add the notches across here, just small little lines. Get my extra small, and here we're just going to put little K's for 1,000. So 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000. 10,000. And then over here, I'll just do in small letters each of the months. And then what I'll do is just line bar graphs up here as I go through, probably just hitting each one of those throughout each of the months. So pretty easy. Then what I'm going to do over here is I'm actually going to just track the videos that I'm posting during each of those months. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to draw a rectangle here. I'm splitting it right here down the center. That's where the center of my pages are. And what I've done here is I've marked them so that I have 6 rows across. I did leave an extra space down here. Instead of putting my headers at the top, I'm going to put my headers at the bottom. So I guess they're a little bit more footers than headers. And then what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to go over 2 squares. And what this will be here, that these will be the months that we go through. So we are going to put just an MO down here for month. And then we're going to put title down here. And what that'll be is the title of each of the videos that I post inside of that month will go there. Probably should have switched pens before. That was kind of big in here, but I'm going to switch to this extra small. And I'm just going to write in the months. All right, now for my Instagram tracker, I have this really fun stamp that I created. I'm going to use this one. I like this because I can put a big number inside of here, and then I usually like to write the date that I hit that. So we're going to create that over here on this side. To create this, I need 3 columns by 3 rows. And it's the easiest way for me to be able to do that across here. So to do that, I'm actually going to go back into my cheat sheet that I created to figure out how we're going to do that. So we'll use this one here. So it'll be 10 squares with 1 in between across, and I'll have plenty of space to put it inside of there. None of these will fully use this space, but we'll go ahead and just keep some space between it, and we'll actually also do something smaller like this. Now the reason I am is I already have this tracker that's here, so this will just be kind of crunched together similar to here, but I'm going to keep them probably more around 12 from the top to the bottom. So what we'll do is 12 spaces here at the bottom, and I'll leave 1 space in between each one of these. And then we'll just give it a little bit of extra room. All right, so we have that all set up here. I've got a little bit of cleanup to do. I'll let this dry for just a second though, but this will be our IG tracker. I'll go ahead and line all of this up. I was super excited just recently to hit 20,000 on Instagram, which is almost 5 years in the making. Things do not always happen quickly, but super excited for that to finally happen for me. So what we'll do here is we'll set this up to start at 20.1. So I'll just be counting by hundreds. I don't grow that quickly. So tracking by 100 works well for me. What I'll do is as I fill these in, I'll probably color in each one of these. Right, and this will take me up until I get to almost 21,000, which while I love manifesting good things inside of my bullet journal, it'll probably take a good bit of time unless something crazy happens or, I don't know, something goes viral. You never really know what's going to happen sometimes. I'm going to keep putting out the same fun content that I always do. And if something great happens, fantastic. And if not, I'm totally okay with it. I love setting small goals. For me, it's super fun and a really great way to enjoy both being on social media and also having fun inside of my bullet journal. And then that's all we're going to do in this video. This was a long video, I feel like, setting up only a few pages, but a lot went into creating these, right? We had to think through and just time of setting them up. So brand new bullet journal. We have our index, which I split in halves. I have my entire future log here, January through December. The space for my 2020 goals. I'm going to be starting on my weekly collections. Again, these are just 2 meetings out of many more meetings that I have that I'll be setting up here in the future. But for right now, I know these 2 are definitely happening, and I'll start my notes here. And then I've got my Instagram tracker and my YouTube tracker to start off the year as well. And then everything after this, well, we'll see in our weekly videos as we go through and set stuff up. So it should be super fun. So looking forward to a really fantastic year inside of my new bullet journal. All right, we are ready to go. Big Boy B5 is set up to get things started for 2022. I could not set up anything more right now because I just think my weeklies are really where all of the heart of my bullet journals are at, and I can't plan ahead for those weeklies just yet. My brain doesn't work that way. So we've got everything ready to go from a basics level. We have an index page set up. We have our future log set up for all of the future planning that we want to do this year. We have recurring meeting setups, and then I created 2 tracker pages to get the year kicked off for 2022. Thanks for hanging out with me today as we went through that. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave those comments down below. I love interacting with you and answering any questions that you have there. Of course, if you are new to this channel, or maybe you've been hanging around for a bit, please consider hitting that subscription button and tap that bell. And then that way you'll know when I have new videos that are coming out throughout this year around planning and personal organization and project management and overall how to work inside of your bullet journal in a fun but a very functional way. I'll talk with you very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you in a future video.